having an induced labor can be very scary if you don't know what to expect, especially when you have gestational diabetes, because there's a lot of fear about the baby being too big and maybe having to have a C-section and stuff like that. So I'll start off by saying I had a very good delivery. Everything went very smooth. My induction went smooth. Overall, it was a okay experience. I mean, do I want to do it again anytime soon? Not really. So will you be induced? This really is dependent on your OBGYN or your doctor's recommendation. My doctor said early on when I was diagnosed with the gestational diabetes that I would most likely be induced around 39 weeks. So I had the anticipation of knowing that this was probably going to happen, so I was able to do some research beforehand. At the 39-week point of my pregnancy, I went into the doctor and they took a look and then called me later that night and they said, okay, you're going to be induced later tonight, so go into the hospital around 6 p.m. So here's a video of what was in my hospital bag in case you want to be prepared and have that ready to go. So from the point I got to the hospital to the point the baby came out was about 18 hours. But there's a lot of things that happen in that time frame. It's not all the delivery. And it's a lot longer sometimes, and it can go all the way up to 3 days before you have the baby, 2 days, it really depends on how quickly your body progresses. Luckily for me, the pushing part only took about an hour, and the contractions only lasted about, from what I remember, I think 4 hours. I feel very lucky that things went quickly, because let me tell you, pushing a baby out is very hard work. I don't know how people do it for like hours and hours, because really you just get so exhausted. I mean, by the time I was done pushing, I felt like I ran a whole entire marathon. I was like sweating and it was exhausting. I mean, I feel like I've never been that tired in my whole life. Let's talk about the best parts of delivery. So with gestational diabetes, you can't have, sugar, a lot of sugar really, up until after you deliver. I knew that I was going to want some bomb food after because I was really dieting for a few months. I did talk to my doctor though. I said, hey, is it okay if I have bad, these sugary foods after I deliver? She told me that it was fine because really it's the baby that was at risk more so than myself. But really you should talk to your doctor and get the clearance on that beforehand, before you deliver, if that's something you want to do. So the best part was after I delivered and they took the baby to get all the checkups and everything, I told my husband to go get me a Coca-Cola. I was like, give me a Coca-Cola right now, I need it. We also ordered pizza to the room, I think from Papa John's. I also got my dad to walk to Taco Bell and he brought me tacos, and then my friends came to the hospital and brought me like giant donuts. So I really went hard in the carbs and the sweets. Obviously another great part of delivering is just being able to just hang out with your baby afterwards and just have that super special time to bond with your baby that you're just meeting. The hardest parts of an induced labor, or the most painful in my opinion, were the IV, which happens when you first get there. So the IV was put in my wrist area, and she missed the first time, so it swelled up, and she's like, oh, I might need to do this again. And I was like, no, it's fine. Anyway, it was fine, so she didn't have to do it again, luckily. Another thing that was pretty painful was the catheter being put in, so be prepared to just, hold on tight for that one. Also, they might have to break your water artificially. So when they do that, they take a sword and no, I'm just kidding. They take like a hook thing and they just push it in and artificially break the water, and it all comes flowing out like a river or a waterfall. And so when they artificially broke my water, it wasn't that it was super painful, but it was like just really uncomfortable. I remember like squeezing my husband's hand off his body. Just kidding. But no, he was like, ow, you squeezed my hand so hard. And then obviously the contractions were, as expected, not that fun. I've always had really painful periods, so I kind of compare it to that, but maybe amped up like couple notches, and I was going to try and do my labor naturally. Well, actually I went into it saying, okay, I'm gonna feel it out, and then if there's a certain point where I feel I need to get the epidural, then I would. You know, I didn't have a strong feeling one way or the other, but I did want to try and feel it out first, which I did, and I got to a certain point where I said, "Give me the drugs." No, I'm just kidding. I said, okay, I'll take the epidural now. This isn't fun. And I expected the epidural to be very painful, and honestly, it wasn't that bad. I think they numb it first, but after the whole delivery and everything, I had like a bruise in that area where the epidural went for a while, and it kind of hurt when I touched a certain area of my back, but that does go away. I think by like 3 months I didn't feel it anymore, and it's not that bad. It's just like a little bit of a bruisey feeling, which may or may not happen to you guys, I don't know. So my epidural did wear off a little bit by the time I started pushing, so do expect, you know, even if with the epidural, it's not going to be like, woo, let's do it, let's have a baby. It's like, I'm pushing out a baby, but you don't feel like contractions so much. So that was the good and the bad of having my induced labor. I know once I delivered, I was like, I turned to my husband, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. But you know what, now that I've sat back for a little bit, I would do it again. It really wasn't that bad. Overall, I'm grateful for having such a smooth and fast and just overall good experience with my induction. Do your research beforehand, know what to expect, so that there's no curveballs being thrown. So if you guys have any other questions about having an induction with gestational diabetes, leave your questions in the comments below and I'll try and answer them. And I hope this video was helpful.